Alright guys, so what I wanted to dig into today is how when everybody talks about those Junkyard LS builds, how they think it's the cheapest thing ever. And it is cheap comparatively to, other newer setups. Like if you want to do a coyote swap, it might be badass, but it's going to be more expensive. But even just this on its own, I just want to tell you guys everything about why you can't expect to turbo something and spend $2,000, and that's it. So let's get into the details now.
Oh, this is awkward.
What's up guys, Big Clive 34 coming at you today from my driveway where all of my neighbors, it's funny because I'm used to being in front of the camera, but they're not used to seeing me in front of the camera all that much. At least not like this, just straight up talking to you guys. So it's a little bit awkward for them. I can tell like when they drive by and like when they walk out and they look at me and they're like, okay, this guy's losing his mind. Well, I am, so they're right. But you might even get the chance to see one or two people drive by, and almost every time without fail they hit the slow down, stare, and then speed back up as they pass by. It's pretty funny to me. Questionable stuff. It's just, I don't know. Today I am here to tell you a little bit about my Turbo LS truck, which obviously these trucks come with an LS engine, so it takes a little bit out of what you have to do when you're building something with an LS under the hood. And before we actually get into what I want to talk about, I'm going to bring you in here real close and we can check out the setup together, where it's at. If you guys are looking for updates on the truck, this is a cool little update too, I guess. So we just have our 78mm VS Racing Boy over here coughing up a little bit of oil because my drain needs to be rerouted. That's on me. Other than that though, it's a sloppy mess in here right now, which is kind of embarrassing, but I'm still working on getting it fixed up. So there's that. The VS Racing, I guess this is just a common LS kit. It actually fit really well. Had to get my buddy over at Jay's Performance to weld in a section here. Jay's Performance, Newark, Delaware. Shout out to them. You know, we got our electric fans we had to put in. Behind all of this, which is not in the truck yet, we have a 480E getting built by Diesels Unlimited in Elkton, Maryland. And other than that, I mean, I'm probably forgetting something and probably going to get yelled at, but other than that, we have a pretty much factory truck. So this is a pretty straight up build, no swap required, which would make things way more difficult. Stock rear end, a whole bunch of stock components, which just tends to make things easier until they break, which might or might not come. I have no expectations, but if it does, we'll get there. But I just want to talk about what it costs, like on a baseline to get this thing running and driving, making decent power, So everybody, when they talk about LS swaps or Junkyard LS builds, it's all about how cheap it is. And people seriously blow this concept out of the water. Like, with how people talk about it, you think that you can make 1,000 horsepower with like $2,000, which simply just, guys, it really isn't the case. I hate to break your heart, but it's a lot more expensive than that, especially if you're not a mechanic like me. I'm not a mechanic. I know about some of this stuff, but I've never really screwed around with a lot of it. I've been learning a lot, which can also get expensive. Luckily, I've had some great help from sloppy mechanics. Otherwise, what I'm about to tell you might have even bigger of a price tag on it because, if you don't have the right person to ask and you're out there throwing stuff under the hood, doing trial and error, well, you're going to spend more money. So let's hop into the misconceptions about this kind of stuff, and I'm going to tell you what it's really like and what the real expense is, at least so far, of building a turbocharged LS powered vehicle. So you start out with your build sheet. For me, I think I was expecting like $3,500 to $4,000 originally, and I had a buffer there where I was like, I'm definitely going to go over that. This is like the key components, like the turbo, the cam, the springs, all that kind of stuff. That was like my $35,000 to $4,000 with the transmission and the converter and all that stuff. So after that, I just have to tell you guys, right now, I kind of just was like in a spending frenzy where I was buying a bunch of small things, but I'm pretty sure that I'm at least $1,000 over that original anticipated budget that I had, which it is what it is. I kind of expected it, but If you have a budget set of, I bought my turbo, I bought my cam, I bought my this and that, and I'm set, that's probably not what it's going to be, because when you start digging into this, you know, you have your hoses, your gaskets, you have a different hardware, the stock that I needed to mount the intercooler, you know, certain things that I ordered and just didn't fit right, and I had to order again. So it's like 20 bucks, 20 bucks, 20 bucks, 20 bucks, you know, even 5 bucks for this, 5 bucks for that. Before you know it, you're where I'm at, where I'm $1,000 over budget. So just so that you know that, that's probably going to happen in most cases, unless you have a garage full of hardware and you've done this 100 times, in which case you're probably not watching this video trying to do research for your LS swap. And sometimes, like with what I did, you're gonna have to replace some stuff too. Like, for example, I screwed up a pretty expensive part. I broke the balancer. I probably could have bought a used one, but I wanted this thing to run, so I bought a new one. It was like $95. So stuff like that, it just adds up, and before you know it, you're spending a lot of money. Also, things aren't as cheap as they say. You gotta realize that a lot of times when people are telling you about their builds or swaps that they've done, they're looking at it through rose-colored glasses and kind of realizing where they screwed up and how they would save money next time. But when you do the build the first time for yourself, you're not going to think of that stuff because you hadn't been in the situation before. I kind of think about it like a relationship that somebody's still a little bit fond of, but then, you know, it wasn't actually that great when it was happening. So, like, they're thinking about all the good times doing the build, but not the arguments and the drag them out fights that you had and this and that. So, like, they're thinking about the finished project and not destroying your knuckles in this engine bay while cursing all night long because you couldn't get to that one bolt. For me, it was the bed bolt back there that took about 8 hours because I could not access it. That's just something else that you have to remember when you're talking to somebody. You know, obviously, Matt, who I got my build sheet off of, this is absolutely no shade at him, by the way, because more than helpful, and I think he does a really good job of kind of telling people what to expect. But in my particular situation, you know, with the different things that I had to go through, you know, sometimes you don't get the good prices. Like I told you guys, you know, we have the VS Racing partial sponsorship on the turbo kit, and, you know, Diesels Unlimited sponsorship on the transmission and stuff like that. And people might not mention that, you know, telling you that they got a spectacular price from their buddy. They might not mention that, and then when you go to buy it, obviously you don't get those spectacular prices unless you're really looking. So when you're talking to somebody, maybe ask them, where did you get this? Where did you get that? Did you buy everything new? Definitely good questions to kind of gauge where somebody's at on their build if you want to try and take a crack at building something similar to them. It kind of sucks, but we don't all know a guy who can get us crackhead deals on certain parts, and some of us have to pay full price for certain things. I paid full price for a lot of things in this truck. And I guess just remember that when you're taking advice from somebody, just make sure that they're being honest as they can with themselves and not just happy that they've finished it. Just remember that. But anyways, guys, that's about it. I wouldn't discourage you from building something like this. Like I said, I would say that I'm probably about $5 grand into this at this point, and I think that that's probably about where most people would sit. A lot of the stuff I bought new when I probably could have waited on it, but I just kind of went for it. So, you know, 5 to 6 grand to turbo something like this. It's definitely not super cheap. It's cheaper than what you can do in a lot of other areas. It's just kind of like taking a vehicle that wasn't designed to handle boost. Like, there's no way in hell when GM put together this basic ass work truck that they thought some idiot was going to be slapping a turbo on it and trying to make a ton of power and drag racing it. It's just going to bring up some challenges that you're going to have to pay to handle and invest your time in to handle that are going to come up. And it goes even further than that when you're sticking an engine that's not designed to be in a car. Like if you want to do your Fox body swap or G body swap or S10 swap or whatever you're sticking an LS into, just know that it might not be designed to do that, and that's going to bring up new challenges that you're going to have to get around. So my advice just comes down to 2 things. One is do a lot of research, like look around hard, think about all of the things that you think you're going to need, and go above and beyond in that. Like, look at new prices. And then the second piece of advice that kind of ties in with the first piece of advice is do not lowball yourself, overestimate it if anything, and that way if you end up coming up short of what you originally anticipated to spend, well, then you'll have saved some money. And if you spend right at where you're kind of overestimating the spend, then you will have hit right on the head, and you'll be spending, you know, what you expected in the first place. And that's probably closer to reality. So that's what I got, guys. Thanks for watching. Truck update coming at you, hopefully within a week. I need to do a couple things here to get this thing on the street for good. Hopefully we'll have the transmission back in the next couple of days as well. Oh yeah, by the way, I was called out for the YouTube call out, and it's a high priority on my list. If this thing gets done, I will be there. So I'm gunning for that, in case you guys were wondering about that as well. So that's it. That's the truck. That's the build. That's the idea. I'll catch you guys next time. Oh man, it's already fogging up. It's definitely humid out here. Oh well, we'll see how this works out. Hopefully that stays clear.